Burton of Salesforce.
Thank you, Kim. I'd first of all like to start by thanking Senator Coons for his inspirational comments about cloud computing. I particularly appreciated those. On behalf of Mark Benioff, really want to thank TechAmerica. I mean, Phil Bond and Chris and Jennifer, everyone just did an outstanding job on this. And obviously, Michael Capellas is the sort of super co-chair. And as the person who had to staff Mark Benioff on this, I'm delighted that we have completed this project. It was such a good outcome. What I just thought I'd do quickly is if you think about cloud computing and the way this report thought about it, I think it is very important, as Mr. Capellas noted, because it is a consensus. There were over 70 organizations, mostly companies from all walks, including academics, heavy discussions with policymakers, and I think this is pretty much an objective consensus about where do we stand with the cloud, what's going on, what does the policy landscape look like. And it was an effort to demonstrate real leadership and to send policy signals not only to ourselves, but I think to other policymakers around the world. And the report does that in 4 categories. Focuses on trust, transparency, transformation, and transporter data flows. And I think the first big policy signal that the United States sent out about cloud computing was the Cloud First policy that Vivek Kundra is credited with. And not only was that important inside the U.S. government, it had huge echoes to governments and markets around the world. And this exercise was to try and think, what are the other policy signals that we want to send out? And I'll just make a couple of comments. Number one, I think that cloud computing is interesting and important, not only as a market phenomenon, which is unstoppable, but it's important because it will fundamentally change every other technology policy domain we're talking about. So if there is an omnibus privacy bill, cloud computing is going to change our thinking there. If there's a data breach bill, cloud computing is going to change our thinking there. Cybersecurity, H-1B visas, R&D tax credit. You can really look down the whole litany of policy discussions that have kept us up at night for the last decade, many of which we have made precious little progress on. And I think the cloud is really transforming those, and it's important to think about those with this new lens. So I think that there is a policy impact that the cloud will have. And when it comes to government, and in addition to the policy report we put out, the Commission put out, they also put out a Cloud First Buyer's Guide for Government, which really tried to tee up how federal agencies or government agencies should think about using cloud computing. And I think there's a couple of interesting comments there, and that is, number one, not only is cloud computing the antidote for a lot of wasted efficiency that has plagued too many government IT projects, and I think we're going to see huge advances there. Cloud computing is a fundamental platform on which the delivery of modern services in the digital economy are going to be built. So it is a corrective, and it is also a whole new platform. If we think about the types of signals that the U.S. government, the private sector with this report needs to be sending internationally, and again, the report was divided into 4 areas. One was trust, and so to make sure that we have strong security standards, we insist on transparency and trusted solutions coming out of cloud providers. That really then backs into the transparency issue, which is not only for cloud providers, but also for government access to cloud data and information stored in the cloud. And the report was pretty definitive that whatever those standards are, they should be the same for data stored in the cloud and data stored in traditional client server or on-premise environments. And so that was an important issue for us also. And transformation, I think that really speaks to the transformation of the policy dialogue and government performance and the delivery of government services. And then the big policy issue is transnational data flows. And they are flowing like water, as Dan Reed said. And I think the issue is not to try and stop those or to think that we can stop those and insist that data stops at a geographic edge or is bounded by a national boundary, but really really just start thinking through what are the government condominiums, the private-public sector dialogues that are going to recognize the fact of transnational data flows and put that in a context so that we can all be comfortable that they are managed with security and privacy top of mind. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. And Mike Olstrom.
Kim, thank you.